different stands within the movement. Now, as you know that non-cooperation movement started, Khilafat movement began in 1921. Various social groups participated in this movement, each with its own specific aspirations. All of them responded to the call of the Swaraj, which was given by Mahatma Gandhi. But the term meant different things for different people. Now, the movement in the towns, what happened in the towns, in the middle class, how they responded to the call of the non-cooperation. The movement started with the middle class participation in the cities, like in the towns, how they responded. Thousands of students left government-controlled schools, colleges, headmasters and teachers, they resigned, and lawyers gave up their legal practices. The council elections were boycotted in most of the provinces except Madras, which the Justice Party and the party of the non-Brahmins felt that entering the council was one of the way of gaining some power. They thought that if we'll boycott elections, what will happen? That we will not be there in the power in the government, so we cannot have the say. So they thought that instead of boycotting, let us participate in the elections and win the elections. At least we can bring some change in the government for the Britishers. Then what happened? The effects of the non-cooperation on the economic front were more dramatic. You know what happened? Foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops picketed, and the foreign clothes burned in huge bonfires. The import of the foreign clothes between 1921 and 1922, its value dropped, right? So in many places, what happened? Merchants and traders, they refused to trade in the foreign goods or the foreign trade. So as boycott movement spreaded, the people began discarding the import of the clothes and wearing only Indian ones. So the production of the Indian textile mills and handlooms went up. Then what was the reason for the slowdown of the movement? Now let us see what happened. In this movement, in the cities, gradually the movement slowed down because the khadi, the clothes which they said that the Indian clothes will be wearing, the khadi was expensive. Then the mass production of the mill of the clothes, the poor could not afford it. So how can they buy and boycott? Like they could not boycott the British made goods because those were cheaper and Indians were not rich enough to buy those expensive clothes. So this way how it became slow down the movement, right? So in this what happened? Similarly, the boycott of the British institutes posed a problem. Now from the movement to be successful, alternative Indian institute had no setup. Now when the schools they have boycotted, the Indian government was not having schools where they can go. So this movement had to slow down, like which they thought that they will be boycotting, they boycotted. But the substitute, okay, that was not there with the governments. That was not there with the Gandhiji. He did not thought like what the other alternative will be there if they will be boycotting. So these were slow down. So the students and the teacher began trickling, came back to the government schools. Lawyers joined back the government courts. Okay. Now what happened? The rebellion in the countryside. Now in the countryside, how the people reacted to the non-cooperation movement. It drew into the folds of the struggle of the peasants, tribals, which were developing in the different parts of the India in the year after the war. Now what happened? Let's see in the Awadh what happened to the peasants. What they did in the Awadh, the peasants. Now peasants were in the Awadh, the peasant movement which was here, that was led by Baba Ramchandra. Now he was a sannyasi who had earlier been to the Fauji as the indentured labor. So the movement here was against talukdars, landlords who demanded from the peasants like high rents and a variety of other seizures. Like if they will not be giving the rent, they can seize their land. So peasant had to be beggar, like work at the landlord's farms without any payment. They have to do this. So what happened, as a peasants, they had no security of tenure, being regularly evacuated, so they had to put to acquire no right over the leased land which they have rented. So the peasant movement demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of beggar. Like no beggar means like no, they'll be working for the Britishers, but they will not be paid anything. No money they will be getting for this. Social boycott of oppressive landlords. Like landlords were forcing them that they have to pay the taxes, but how could they pay when they are so poor? They were not getting the money also. They were not paying also anything when they were working on their fields. In many places, Dhobi bands were organized by the panchayats to deprive the landlords to the service of even barbers and washermen. They also refused that, okay, we will not give you these services. Then what they will do? So in 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru began going around to the villages in the Awadh and talking to the villagers and trying to understand their grievances. By October, the movement started, that was Kisan Sabha, that was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru and Baba Ramchandra and a few others. They joined, like Kisan Sabha they started. So within a movement, 300 branches had been set up in the villages around the region. So what happened when this started, the peasant movement, it developed in the various forms. In the Congress leadership which was there, they were not happy with this, like they are having the struggles, and Jawaharlal Nehru, the main, he is talking to the peasants and all. They did not want it, the Congress party should join this non-cooperation. They wanted to fight the election and have the say in the government. So people within the Congress party only, they were not happy with this decision. So what happened? The movement spread in 1920. So the houses of the talukdars, merchants were attacked, bazaars were looted and gained and were overtaken. So in many places, local leaders told peasants that Gandhiji has declared that no taxes will be paid and the land was redistributed among the poor. So the name of the Mahatma Gandhi was being invoked to sanction all the actions and aspirations. So when the Mahatma Gandhi called for the non-cooperation, every community in the country has taken in their own way. Peasants, they thought that okay, not to pay the taxes, that will be the best. That Mahatma Gandhi said not to cooperate, so not to pay the taxes. So everyone has taken the non-cooperation of the Mahatma Gandhi in their own way. Now let's see about the tribal peasants, what they did. Now tribal peasants interpreted the Mahatma Gandhi's message as the idea of Swaraj is yet another way. So in Gundan Hills of Andhra Pradesh, there was a militant guerrilla movement which spread in 1920. So they have struggled, not a form of a struggle that Congress was approved. Here, as in the other foreign regions, the colonial government had closed large forest areas. So preventing the people from entering into the forest for grazing their cattle or to collect the fuel, wood and fruits. But that was a livelihood for the forest, for the tribal people. So non-cooperation by the tribal people has taken their own way. They said that Gandhiji said not to cooperate. So we will be not cooperating and we will be entering the forest. We will be not listening to the Britishers that they cannot enter in the forest. So there was the movement who the people, the movement which was there in the Andhra Pradesh, that was headed by Alluri Sitaram Raju, who claimed that he had a variety of special power. So they thought that he was like a god, he will overcome all the problems of the peasants. So Mahatma Gandhi's say which was there for the non-cooperation, every community took it in their own way. Now let's see about the planters. Okay, how they have taken the Mahatma Gandhi's stand for the non-cooperation. Now workers too understood the Mahatma Gandhi notion of Swaraj, like now in Assam, planters like tea, it is there. So what they mean that they can freely come and go out from the field, right? But this was not Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation movement. So this was also linked by the planters. Okay, Mahatma Gandhi said that we can move freely within the plantation whenever they feel like. So there is no need of taking the permission from the British government. Next topic is Simon Commission. Now, I think children, you all are like very much aware of the slogan that was Simon Go Back. Let's know what is this commission. Now, against the civil disobedience movement, now British government, they constituted a commission under Sir John Simon, set up in response to the nationalist movement. The commission was to look into the functioning of the constitutional system in India and suggest changes. As Indian were complaining that in the elections they were like no Indians were not the members in the elections, the Indians were not there. So they thought, why not to suppress that movement, why not to set up a commission. So the problem was that the commission did not have a single Indian member, so they were all Britishers. When Simon Commission arrived in India in 1928, it was greeted with the slogan, Go back Simon, go back Simon. All parties including Congress as well as Muslim League participated in the demonstration. In an effort to win over Viceroy Lord Irwin, he announced that in October 1929, he offered the dominant status for the Indians in an unspecified future and a roundtable conference to discuss a future of the Indian constitution. So that was Lord Irwin who did this. So this did not satisfy the Congress leaders. The radicals within the Congress, led by Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, became assertors. The liberals and the moderates who were proposing a constitutional system within the framework of British dominance gradually lost their influence. So in December 1929, what happened? Presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Lahore Congress formalized the demand for the Purna Swaraj, or that is full independence for India. Day when the people were to take up the pledge to the struggle for complete independence. But the celebrations attracted very little attention. So Mahatma Gandhi had to find a way to relate this abstract idea of freedom to more concrete issues of everyday life. So in that instant, what Mahatma Gandhi did, he started Dandi March. So children, now we'll be doing about the next topic, that will be Dandi March. Now in this, children, what happened? Mahatma Gandhi found in a salt a powerful symbol that could unite the nation. So 31st January 1930, he sent a letter to Viceroy Irwin stating 11 demands. Some of these were general interest, others were specific demands of different classes, from industrialists to peasants. The idea was to make the demands wide-ranging so that all classes within the Indian society could identify with them and everyone could be brought together in a united campaign so that all the communities in India will be satisfied that it is for their demand. So the most steering thing was that all was demanding to abolish the salt tax, because salt is a thing which is used by everyone, whether it is rich or it is poor. Salt was something consumed by everyone. So what happened? It was the most essential thing in the food. So the tax on the salt and the government monopoly over its production. So Mahatma Gandhi declared relevant the most oppressive phase of the British rule. So Mahatma Gandhi's letter was in a way of the ultimatum. If the demand were not fulfilled by 11th March, the letter stated that the Gandhiji would launch a civil disobedience campaign. So Irwin was unwilling to negotiate. So Mahatma Gandhi started his famous Salt March, accompanied by 78 of his trusted volunteers. The march was over 240 miles from Gandhiji's ashram to Sabarmati to the Gujarat coastal town area. Right. So in this what happened? The volunteers walked for 24 days, about 10 miles a day. Thousands came to hear Mahatma Gandhi wherever he stopped, and he told them what he meant by Swaraj and urged them to peacefully define, to peacefully, like no, against, you have to fight for against the Britishers, not to use the violent way. On 6th April, he reached Dandi, that was in Gujarat, and ceremonial violated the law, manufacturing salt by boiling seawater. This marked the beginning of civil disobedience movement. This was altogether different from non-cooperation movement. People were now asked not only to refuse cooperation with Britishers as they had done in 1921 and 22, but also to break colonial rules, laws. Thousands in different parts of the country broke the salt law, manufactured the salt, demonstrated in front of the government salt factories. As the movement spread, foreign clothes were boycotted, liquor shops were picketed, peasants refused to pay revenues, chowkidari taxes, village officials resigned, and in many places, forest people violated forest law, going to the reserved forest to collect wood and grazing kettles. Now for all these things, now Britishers will not keep quiet. So what they did, how they responded, this will be going to do the next topic. So that is response of British rulers. Now what happened? Worried by the developments, the colonial government, what they did, they began arresting Congress leaders one by one. This led to violent clashes in many places. When Abdul Ghaffar Khan, a devotee, a disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, was arrested in 1930 April, angry crowds demonstrated in the streets of Peshawar, facing really firing and police firings were there. Many were killed. A month later, when Mahatma Gandhi himself was arrested, industrial workers in Sholapur attacked police posts, municipal buildings, law courts, railway stations, all structures that symbolized British rule. So this frightened the government and responded with the policy of brutal repression. Peaceful satyagrahis were attacked, women and children were beaten, and about 100,000 people were arrested. So how can the Britishers keep quiet when Indians started revolting against them? Children, now Next topic of this is the last topic of this chapter, that is the round table conference. Now, what happened in such a situation? Mahatma Gandhi once again decided to call off the movement and enter into a pact with the Iranian viceroy. That was on 5th March 1931. By this Gandhi-Irvin Pact, Gandhiji concerted to participate in a round table conference. In London, the government agreed to release the political prisoners. In December 1931, Gandhiji went to London for the conference, but the negotiations broke down and he returned disappointed. So back in India, he discovered that the government had begun a new cycle of repression. So children, then what happened? There were Ghaffar Khan, Jawaharlal Nehru, both were in the jail. So Congress had been declared illegal and a series of measures had been imposed to prevent these meetings, demonstrations, boycotts and all they started. With great apprehension, Mahatma Gandhi relaunched the civil disobedience movement. So as the time passed, the movement continued, but by 1934, it lost its momentum. Right. So children, in this third part, we have covered about civil disobedience movement, then how Mahatma Gandhi came back again, then by bringing the salt law, then round table conference he entered. At least we can have the round table conference and come to the negotiations. I think children, I have made very clear this full chapter of nationalism in India in 3 parts.